moralistic, therapeutic preaching.
Yeah.
And so there was no real understanding of the gospel of Christ.
Okay, where are you comfortable? Well, there you want to do that.
I'm good. It's good. Unless you would rather be in the shot there.
There's plenty of shot right
Are
here.
you're not going to be in the conversation?
No, I'm in the shot. No,
okay.
I'm in the conversation. No, I've got something I would like to lay out, but we'll get to all that. Okay, so let's kind of reset here, and we have your permission to interview.
Yes, you do.
Okay, excellent.
Great.
All right, so we are going to discuss a important topic regarding the nature of existence, the existence of God, or the lack thereof, and we'll just kind of work through it.
Absolutely.
At some point, in our conversation, I do want to kind of lay out. Obviously, we're going to be speaking from foundations, and when we're doing that, then we kind of have permission to look at the foundation that we stand on. Okay, and so I'm going to offer my foundation, you offer yours.
Absolutely.
And we'll all feel free to, and you included. So, but I know where you stand. but we will kind of look and see the stonework, as it were.
Absolutely.
But
it's important to start.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, why don't we?
Well, you said you had something to lay out.
Well, yeah, I do, but I kind of want to. Do we want to continue on what we started with?
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. So I want to finish some of my story with you, so
Sure,
you have a better understanding of my context. I think context is also important with laying the foundation here.
Yeah.
So for me, I was a hockey player, like I was telling you, most of my life. Got to college, I lost hockey, so I had an existential crisis. I studied many religions, philosophers, psychologists. Ultimately, I ended up somewhere near Buddhism. That's what I practiced. Got into meditation. It was very impactful for me. But the deeper I went into the practice, the more I sensed some kind of cognitive dissonance. There was this tension in my life. Philosophers often refer to it as angst. Existential guys refer to it as angst. And I think God was using that in my life to continue to show me that not only is nothing satisfying, Ecclesiastes, but also that the more that I tried to wrestle with this in my own way, it was just utter failure. I didn't have the terms at the time to say this, but it was still sinful. I was sensing that. So
You're sensing it was sinful?
yeah, well, I knew it was wrong, and I knew that the more that I
What was
tried,
wrong?
the different practices that I would put into place to try and mitigate my experience of pain and suffering. Because it was all about me still,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And even if I tried to do it for other people, it was still a manipulation of some sort to make it about me. Right?
Sure.
So at the very least, I began to sense that. And then when Easter came around that year, I just woke up and felt like I wanted to go to a church. It's a very strange kind of experience, but I just knew I wanted to go to a church. And suffice it to say, I found a church online. I went to that church, I heard the gospel for the first time. And it finally clicked for me. It finally clicked. Out of everything I've ever studied, this was the only one that seemed to be unique. That is, that it was grace-based. It was something that was given, not earned. To be made right with ultimate reality or God or whatever the concept is. It was a gift. And so I remember the line that kind of triggered the connections for me. The preacher was on the stage and he goes, Jesus was carrying a cross not that he had earned, but a cross that we had earned. And then from that point on, the dominoes started to fall. And so I've been following Christ ever since. And so, that to say, I had a wide range of experiences through philosophy and study, looking into psychology and other religions, and out of them all, I came to Christianity, the guidance of Christ. So I hope that's helpful for some of my
very,
context.
very. Yeah, no, that's good because me personally, I enjoy the things that you look for. I mean, when I left Christianity, that's also what I did. I actually had do you want me to talk about my upbringing?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and hit. Yeah,
Do we have to
us.
have any structure, or we just?
It's
Okay.
pretty flexible.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So for me, like I said, I was a pretty big Christian, and then I had this kind of rebellious age, like in high school, or everything. Like I put a middle finger to everything kind of attitude. Listen to Blink-182, which is, I don't know if you know
Yep.
what that is. Yeah, you're 29, you know what Blink-182 is. Thought I was the biggest rebel. And so as a rebel, I had to rebel against everything. One of those things being Christianity. So I never actually, the original departure for me from Christianity had nothing to do with logic, reason, or God not answering my prayers. It was
Yeah.
just, I'm going to do this because it's different.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a Rastafarian.
Really?
So I should show you, I should bring you pictures, man.
You had the hair too,
I
didn't
had
you?
dreadlocks,
Yeah, you did.
man. Oh, but I was serious. I would go out with my Bible into the forest every day and read. Every day. It's a big. I've never been so devoted to. It's probably the most I've been actually devoted to anything. So a lot of my experience with religion or just belief itself, it would be through Rastafarianism. A lot with Christianity, but really the whole bang with Rastafarianism, because a lot of things that I present to Christians now that I see people wrestle with, I wrestle with that as a Rasta instead. I would suggest both of the same problems, because I believe that there was a God. I believe that Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, he's an emperor who was crowned in 1930, November 10th, 1930, the emperor of Ethiopia. And Rastafarian, his name was Ras, space, Tafari, which means Prince Tafari. So the Rastafarianism is a belief that this man was God. It's the same kind of thing with Jesus. It's just the belief that this man is God too.
Yeah.
And I was very devoted to that. But along with it, of course, came the slew of everything. It's eating. It mattered what I ate. It mattered how I acted towards people. I mean, my whole life was very much centered around this thing, and it was beautiful. Honestly, I mean, it was a great way to operate my life. I mean, even now, I'll listen to a reggae song and I'll start getting teary-eyed just because it just went so deep. You know.
Kind of a nostalgic longing of a
Probably more
simpler
that.
time.
Certainly a nostalgic longing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. My church was every day in the car ride between work. You know, listening to Bob Marley and praising Selassie I. You know, screaming Rastafari and whipping my dreadlocks around with a cup of coffee. I laugh at it now because it's silly. But then for
You
me,
can't deny those good tunes, though.
some good tunes, and I still listen to them ever so often, although music has been not on the forefront as much anymore. But I went to college. Oh, so I saw a YouTube video one day of a man named Alan Watts,
I'm familiar.
and I'm sure you know who he is if you know anything about Eastern philosophy. He's the one who brought a lot of the Eastern ideas. So he, with his clarity of speaking, he was able to show a completely different way of looking at reality and a completely different approach to the hard problem of existence. And that slowly I broke away from being a Rasta. There was no definite I'm done, but I think when I cut my dreadlocks, that was kind of a definite okay, I guess I'm done with that. And I would say I became more of a Buddhist and kind of came into believing oh, you know, the universe, what he would say is the universe is, you are an aperture which the universe looks out, you know, that kind of stuff. And I was very much enthralled with that kind of thinking. It was totally different. The line that changed it for me was, he said, most of us feel that we came into this universe. We came into existence, but you didn't. You came out of it, like a rose from a rose bush. We emerge from the universe. We don't come into it. That's a Western idea. Because Western ideas is that it's contingent at the framework that the universe is ceramic. It's made by a master carpenter. It's no coincidence that Jesus was the son of a carpenter, and also the son of God. He, in the Bible, calls it the Son of Man. But, so that was a big shift. Just a big philosophical framework shift. But I would say I kind of went into it very full-heartedly, thinking, and It wasn't until I came into contact with philosophy and epistemology and how do we know what we know, and what is a good reason to believe in something, that I divorced myself from even that kind of thinking, Alan Watts thinking. And so now, but yeah, we'll get to that later. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of the story.
I want to clarify a little bit more of your context.
Yeah.
Can you help us understand where you're at currently? So you've heard a lot about your history at
Sure.
different points in our conversation, but help give us some framework of where you're at right now in your belief system.
Belief system.
Or however you want to define yourself.
So I guess if we're going to talk about it in terms of Christianity or like God, I don't think that there are any good reasons. So like my definition of atheist is I don't think there are any good reasons to believe in God or anything supernatural.
Okay.
So that's just that's
Okay.
the definition.
Okay, now let me kind of see if you can expand that a little bit.
Yeah.
Would you say that you are primarily a materialist atheistic?
No, because so it's a good question because there's this kind of divide in philosophy between idealism and materialism. I think that materialism is an uncertainty, right? So materialism is the model we use now. It's the one that works. It's the model that works. It doesn't mean that's what it is. In fact, we have never found material. Material is a philosophical concept, just like spiritual is a philosophical concept. They're both philosophical concepts.
Yeah.
And the universe isn't spiritual, it isn't material. It's giving it a name that would be my foundation. That would be, to speak foundationally, that would be my foundation. Neither concepts can actually be right because they're just descriptive. But and my epistemology begins, what I know begins with I am. Not even Descartes' I think, therefore I am. There's something that notices the thinking, so I am.
So there's 2 points there I want to clarify.
Sure.
So your foundational presupposition is self-existence.
Not a presupposition. You don't need logic, because presupposition means it's a logical framework that you're basing. So I am doesn't require logic, doesn't require presupposition. It just requires your experience. It's just absolutely true. You can be a brain at the bat, you can be whatever, you just know that the lights are on. That is something you know. You don't need to presuppose it.
Well, that's how I intend to use the word, the way that you're describing it, is that you
Well,
just assume it.
Well, it's not an assumption, it's an observation. So an assumption, like a presupposition, is that God exists. And then building a framework off of that ideal, or that the universe is material, is also a presupposition. What means the universe is actually spiritual, that's another presupposition. But this is actually difficult because it's the one thing that we can know for certain. There's only one certainty, and that is I am. I don't even know that you are.
But that's kind of a question begging.
Yeah.
Also,
Are you certain of that?
yes. So no. So if I'm not making the argument.
That's something else that you're certain of.
I'm not making the
Yeah.
argument that I am. I'm observing that I am.
Yeah.
But that
So
doesn't justify
it doesn't require justification. It doesn't require logic. Doesn't require justification. It doesn't require anything. It literally doesn't require anything. That's what because Descartes had it almost right, because he went and doubted everything. So through self-doubt, it's actually a lot of what we do in meditation. Is going back and back. What can he actually know? What can I actually know? I gotta doubt this. What can I know? The only thing you can know is you can say consciousness and its contents. The lights are on. In other words, that is unmistakable. It's the one thing that is unmistakable. It doesn't require logic. It doesn't require reason. It doesn't require anything.
Well, but the thing is it's not a. You're saying the lights are on. All you can say is lights are on, but you don't know if they're your lights.
No, you're right. Lights are on.
You don't know if you're a figment of someone else's imagination.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's you're just making my point.
Yeah.
You're right. You don't know. You don't know anything. The lights are on is cumbersome language.
if your
as well.
position is true.
It's not a position.
True. it
A
is.
position. So it's like, are you aware?
Yes.
How do you know?
because God has revealed it to me, and I'm in His
Are
world,
you-
His universe.
Okay, so that's a presupposition.
Sure.
But I'm saying from this moment, let's say you don't believe in anything. Let's say a baby. Does a baby know it's aware
Yes,
without knowing God?
that's impossible.
Okay, so that's what we call a presupposition.
Sure.
So that's a philosophical foundational presupposition that you're talking about. Well, I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm talking about just the immediacy of experience. That alone doesn't require explanation. We know that is. That's what Descartes means by I think therefore I am. I think he got it wrong.
Cognitive ergo sum.
Cogito ergo sum.
Yeah.
But I think he got it wrong though.
I've heard it pronounced differently, but
I know they say the cogito, and then some people say that he didn't mean ergo because it's not therefore because I'm thinking that I am existing.
Yeah.
He's saying that there's two things.
and actually, it isn't more doubting is going on. Isn't it more accurate to say that?
Yeah, I would say it would be radical doubt.
Yeah.
It's certainly radical doubt.
Yeah,
That's
it wasn't thinking; it was actually doubting is going on.
It's just a constant. I mean, I think because he even makes the claim that God exists in his own meditations. It's it's what was called the Cartesian circle.
Yeah.
Which is already dismissed in philosophy, but because it's a secular argument. But he continues after the Cartesian circle and says, well, really, what I can know is that the lights are on. And then, of course, the famous brain and that issue. It doesn't even matter. This could be the matrix. This could be. It could be a God. I mean, it could be God that's continuing on. It doesn't even matter. I do know, though, that the lights are on. And there's not even an I do know that you're right. Language is cumbersome.
I want to find a common term that we can share on that. So would you call that an axiom?
No, I would just say it is just a foundation. It is just not even a foundation. It's just the only thing that we can know for certain.
And you don't have a term to describe that.
If we can agree on axiom, that's fine.
That's what I'm
I don't
trying
like
to do.
axiom, though, because then we can say, oh, so is believing in God's an axiom.
Well, that's
Because it's
exactly
not
where
the
I'm
same
going
thing.
with this.
Yeah.
Because you're assuming this one thing. It seems like it's very important to you to connect that with the immediacy of experience. And so it begs the question, so are you going to make the argument that because you have that foundational understanding that you can reason out your comprehension of what's around you on
No.
a moment-by-moment basis?
No, that's not saying. So I'm not making an argument.
Then what are you saying?
That's why it's not an axiom and it's not a presupposition. It's just, my point is that where my epistemology stands begins with the immediacy of experience, that there is something going on rather than nothing.
Okay, but then if you're not going to rest something on it, what do you do with it?
You don't need to. I don't know. It could be rested on 1,000 turtles.
then-
It could be rested on an evil genie. It could be rested on anything. It doesn't matter.
But
That's the point.
we have to. You have to escape our heads somehow. How are you connecting to?
My only point is that this is where it begins for me.
Yeah.
So like you
Okay,
wanted to
well-
lay the foundations.
Yeah.
Escaping the point's the aftermath. But I think what is funny is that I'm just trying to point out and ask the experience itself. That's the beginning. Because in this experience is a totally don't know experience. The only thing that is known is that
Yeah.
there's experience.
Well, at
But
least
it's a
you're
don't know.
consistent. Yeah.
So I don't know that I am, I don't know that you are, I don't know that God is, I don't know that God isn't, I don't know that anything is. In fact, don't know is the foundation.
Okay.
But the one thing that I can know, the one thing that doesn't require logic, doesn't require reason, doesn't require presuppositionalism, is I am, and not even I. Just the lights. That's why I say the lights are on. It's just a kind of a colloquial, easy way to say that there's something happening rather than nothing, and I don't know if it's actually happening, but it's not like what's happening before we were born, from the point of view of our experience. From the point of view of our experience, where were you before you were born?
Before I was born, I was in my mother's womb.
Well, yeah, but say that's thinking, so that's an idea. My point is like from the point of view of
Before I was
experience, if you go
conceived?
back and back, huh?
Before conception?
Yeah,
I
before
didn't-
conception.
I don't believe I existed.
Okay, so then what was that experience?
It was non-existent.
Exactly. So we know that that's not happening now. We know that there is experience. That's what we can know. That's the immediate. That's the foundation. And to make it easy, like when I speak in philosophical circles, it is I think therefore I am. The cogito sum or cogito ergo sum is the foundation. So the only reason I put that out, that's not an argument for God or existence of God or anything. It's just it's the beginning of my epistemology because everything after is uncertain. And what we have to do from that point is determine, and I think that kind of like Hume's point, but I think is also the scientific point of view, is that there is no certainty at all. In fact, everything that we know are different varying degrees of probability. And so
solipsistic?
no, solipsism is the idea that you're the only one that exists. That's
Say it again.
solipsism is the idea that you are the only experience that exists. You are the only thing that exists.
But that is the logical extreme that you admitted to earlier, that it's possible for that to be your case.
But it's also possible that that's not the case. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The point is, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm not making a solipsism claim. I'm making the claim that there's existence rather than non-existence, that there's experience rather than non-experience. That I am.
So quickly to
Right.
summarize.
So I'm not going to make it's a jump to say I am is the only I am. I am is
Yeah, sure.
that's
Okay.
solipsism, which is a bad. I think it's
Now,
a terrible.
when you say existence, you mean you don't mean everything outside of our selves.
I do.
Okay, that's the thing. You're making a jump now. How do you get from lights are on
Yeah.
to here we are?
It's a jump. Yeah. It's so.
Oh, it's good to hear you say that.
So yeah, no, exactly. That this is. I'll just say it again. The only thing I can know is I am. Existence, non-existence, material, spiritual, God, no God, fairies, pixies, whatever. I have no idea. Which isn't actually true. This is just the foundation. So then
Is
I
it
can
actually
make.
true?
So I can make this next point.
It-
I don't.
what-
I don't know. Foundational. I don't know.
Okay.
So there's nothing that can be known except this one thing, if you want to call it a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Except that you also know you're certain of it.
do I know that I'm certain of it? I have the experience of certainty, but I'm not sure that's even true.
Okay.
But the one thing I know is true is I could be certain or uncertain about it. It doesn't matter. There's something happening. The lights are on.
Somebody's lights are on.
Huh?
Somebody's lights are on.
We don't know. We don't know if it's a somebody.
Lights are on. Not
Exactly.
But you can't see your lights.
But you
are
see,
on.
it's actually so foundational that language can't touch it. It's so foundational because I have to say, I think, therefore I am. Who is this I? What are you even talking about?
You're assuming identity at that point.
Exactly. It's not even that. It's really just. That's why the question I think was a little bit more useful. Before you were born, before you even conceived, before you even thought of, let's say 1,000 years ago, where were you? From the point of view of your experience. You know, it's not a blankness, it's not a blackness. Another kind of fun way to do it is like, what does the back of your head look like from the point of view of your eyes? Like, it's not blank, it's not black, it's not even nothing. You see, does that help you? Sometimes that's kind of an interesting thought. But yeah, so that's the beginning of the epistemology, is that that's the one certainty. Everything else that follows are varying levels of probability.
Well,
In terms of knowledge. So like justified true belief, we could talk about the justified part and all that, but that's the foundation. So whenever you say, like I hear Christians say, oh, you have to think that you know everything to say that there's no God. And that's actually not my claim that there is no God. That's not my claim. So if we were to kind of tie this together, I do not claim that there is no God. That's just as a ridiculous statement to say, or I would say just as an illogical statement to say, as there is a God. Unless you can present evidence or show me a good argument for the existence of God.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're at.
so I want to summarize and clarify one point.
Sure.
You resisted calling it an axiom or presupposition, but this
I did.
foundational understanding of I am, that's where you work from. Is that correct?
It's not I am as a philosophical concept.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the right
So
language
that's why I'm
describe
trying to
that.
get rid of we can just call it the cogito. It's just, it's actually not even that more. We can even forget it really if we want to continue to have a more meaningful conversation, because I think we're getting hung up in trying to put this I am into a box, which it can't be, because it's before.
It's not.
thinking.
It's not.
Hold on, this is the point I'm trying to make.
I'm just trying to rest your case on it. But I can't.
Well, I'll show you
I'm
how
going
to
right
do
through
that.
it.
No, I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you in a second.
So what I was trying to get at was, however you want to label that,
Yeah.
you were at least consistent in saying that leads you to a position where you don't know.
Don't know
There's no
anything.
certainty.
Yeah.
That's the connection that I wanted to make very clear.
Socrates. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so at least we have that shared understanding of where you're at in your
Okay.
worldview or how you
Yeah.
understand reality.
Okay, yeah. And if you want to use axioms just for purposes of communication,
Yeah.
let's do that. That makes it easier.
Sure.
I just don't want that to be confused with an axiom of God, because it's not the same.
Yeah.
So that's a totally different thing. Because you could say, well, your axiom may be you are, but then my axiom is God. That would lead to confusion, because then we're using axiom in two different ways. And so that's why I want to retain this kind of special pleading, I would say, to we can just call it the cogito. We can just say that, the cogito, which is Descartes' cogito. So the reason that's important is because I don't make any claims to the positive. I'm not going to say this is absolutely true. I'm not going to say that this is, I don't think there are any certainties, and there are no, even in science, there are no certainties. And my knowledge is an ever-evolving situation that I'm willing to change at any moment based on good argumentation and evidence, and that is resting on the idea.
But in order to analyze that, you have to have a starting point.
Yeah, and the starting point is, I think, therefore I am.
Well, now you're assuming identity again. You have to argue for that.
Okay, so remember what I just said. So when I say I think, therefore I am, don't get stuck up on the language. I'm not trying to talk about the language. You're right. I think, therefore I am. Who is this I?
Yeah.
What is thinking? What is, you're assuming these things. I'm not assuming that.
Yeah.
The same thing with back to non-existence to existence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, so everything. So let me continue this epistemology for a second, just to make it a little bit clearer, because I think you guys are going to try to. I don't know if you guys are presuptionalists.
I am.
Okay. So which I good. So that's why I want to let me counter this for a second
Sure.
before we continue it. So that being the only thing that we can, from my point of view, that being the only thing that we can know, or I can know, everything else is don't know. And the foundation is, well, I know that there's a difference between what I think in my mind and what happens in reality. So I can imagine a unicorn, but I don't see a unicorn. I can think of a unicorn, but it's not there. So there must be a difference between my mind and something outside of me. Furthermore, everybody makes a claim about reality. So you make a claim, he makes a claim, Hindus make a claim, Buddhists make a claim, whatever. Not entirely correct, but so we all have differing opinions about reality. So there has to be a method in order to differentiate the imaginary from the reality, or based on levels of probability. So we can only really so what is more probable to be true? So for instance, let's say I tell you there's a green monster behind that stage. Okay. Or I can say there's a red car behind the stage. One of those are more probably true, because there's implicit evidence in the red car, there's no implicit evidence in the green monster. So it's all about varying degrees of probability, and that's kind of my stance with God. And I think that assuming or having the believing that there's a God is a well, we'll get to it when we get to it.
Okay.
But so that's where it stands, and that's where all of science stands, that's where logic stands, and that's where most philosophers stand.
Sure, it's pragmatism. But you're assuming that the standard is our own. It's human in design, and that we're the authority, the standard to which those probabilities are measured.
The standard, you talk about like logic.
No. So the way that you just reasoned through that, you're assuming that we're the ones that determine what is probable. We're the ones that determine how to measure probability. We're the ones that determine and even interpret the different forms of evidence or observations that we make.
Sure.
I just find that to be an interesting observation.
Yeah, it's certainly,
Man is the measure of all things.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that being, because probability and naming everything, like I said, everything is just a name. These are descriptive, right? They're not in themselves ultimate. They're not ontologies. So so I would say that. And I don't like the word authority. It's kind of it's a very Christian thing to say. Because you're going to go back to say, if you're a precept, you're going to try to say that we need some sort of absolute foundation for the laws of logic and logic.
Well, I can go to that, but more immediately I was thinking if the creator of the standard, however you term that, is people.
Yeah.
But you just said earlier that people can't have certainty about anything.
Yes.
Isn't that creating a problem? And that evaluation process?
No, because it's differing levels. Like I said, there is no certainty. So there is no foundation like that. There's just varying levels of probability. So what you want to say is that there is a certainty, that there is a foundation. And I'm saying that it could be or it could not be. It doesn't matter. We don't know. In fact, it's impossible to know.
Well, I haven't said that yet. That's not where I was going, but fair enough.
If you didn't, I got that implicitly through where you're going, and I apologize if I'm incorrect about that. But yeah, I'm saying that there is no certainty.